Hello everyone, welcome back to the session Benchmarking. This chapter covers a couple of very important techniques benchmarking, either against other internal department or external measures can provide an important perspective on what performance level should be expected. Let's see what's meant by the benchmarking. Benchmarking is the establishment through data gathering of targets and comparators through whose use relative level of performance can be identified. By the adoptions of identified best practices, it is hoped that performance will improve. In other terms, we can say that benchmarking is an attempt to identify best practices and to achieve improved performance by comparisons of operations. Analyzing performance by a single comparison of data can be difficult. Benchmarking is another type of comparisons exercise through which an organizations attempt to improve performance. The idea is to seek the best available performance against which the organizations can monitor its own performance. For example, current year versus prior year financial performance can be delivered as an example. Now we are talking about the distinct approaches to benchmarking. There are three distinct approaches to benchmarking: metric benchmarking, process benchmarking, and diagnostic benchmarking. The metric benchmarking mean the practice of comparing appropriate metrics to identify possible areas for improvement. For example, in a IT investment as a percentage of total assets may be compared across different departments within the same company to identify areas of the company where additional investment is required. By making a comparisons with the same department, we can identify the areas to make additional investment where it is required. Second is a process benchmarking. Process benchmarking is the practice of comparing processes with a partner as a part of an improvement process. For example, a distributor of personal computer may analyze a competitor's supply chain functions in the hope of identifying successful element of the processes that it can use to its advantage. Distributor of personal computer, so as an individual distributor, he should analyze the market competitor supply chain, how their competitors deliver or distribute the computers near to their customers. And the final distinct approaches to benchmarking is diagnostic benchmarking. The diagnostic benchmarking means the practice of review the process of businesses to identify those which indicate a problem and offer a potential for improvement. Let's see how to obtain information for benchmarking. Financial information about competitors is easier to acquire than non-financial information. Information about products can be obtained from reverse engineering, product literature, media comment, and trade associations in order to undertake competitive benchmarking against successful competitors. Information about processes is more difficult to find, which means how an organization deals with customers or suppliers, because most of the organizations are not wish to share their information with the other competitors in the same industry. Such informations can be obtained through the following channels: in intergroup benchmarking and in inter-industry benchmarking. In intragroup benchmarking mean groups of companies in the same industry agree to pool data on their processes. The processes are benchmarked against each other, and an improvement task force is established to undertake strategic benchmarking to identify and transfer best practice to all members of the groups. In intergroup benchmarking mean non-competing businesses with similar processes is identified and asked to participate in a functional benchmarking exercise. The participate in the scheme are able to benefit from the experience of the other and establish best practice in their common business processes. It is also possible to undertake internal benchmarking against other units or departments in the same organizations. In intergroup benchmarking, what we expect to identify and transfer the best practices to all of the group members. In inter-industry benchmarking, what we expect to participate in a functional benchmarking exercise. For example, we can see in uh, operations how to produce the product or services. Why use benchmarking? There are three reasons for using a benchmarking: setting standards, strategic development, and other reasons. Setting standards. Benchmarking allows attainable standards to be established the examinations of both external and internal informations. These standards are most commonly established in the form of key performance indicators. If these standards and indicators are regularly reviewed in the light of information gained through benchmarking exercises, they can become part of a program of continuous improvement by becoming increasingly demanding. Kaizen costing mean we expect to achieve incremental cost reduction through a production stage in the product life cycle. And second reason for using a benchmarking is strategic development. Benchmarking can be useful in helping an organization assess its current strategic position, as in a SWOT analysis. Also be useful for assessing an organization's generic competitive strategy. For example, if an organization believes that one of its strengths of the reliability of its products, how can it be sure of this unless it had tested the reliability of its product against the reliability of the other organization's products? And other thing we said, assessing an organization's generic competitive strategy. For example, before an organization decides to implement a cost leadership strategy, it would be useful for the organization to know what its competitors' costs are and therefore whether it can beat them. If the organizations cannot produce a product or service at a lower cost, or at least the same cost as its competitors, then it would not seem to be sensible for it to implement a cost leadership strategy. Other reasons mean position audit, focus on planning, warning of competitive disadvantage, improves effectiveness of operations. Position audit. Benchmarking can assess a firm's excessive position and provide a basic for establishment standards of performance, and it's identify the process to improve, and also it's improve the effectiveness of operations. So these are the reason why we using a benchmarking: setting standards, strategic developments, and the other standards. Let's see the type of a benchmarking. There are three type of benchmarking: internal benchmarking, industry benchmarking, and functional benchmarking. Internal benchmarking. This involves comparing one operating unit of functions with similar ones within the same organization. This is easier to do than comparing performance with that of external organizations. However, using internal benchmarking alone is unlikely to lead to innovative or best practice solutions because there is no scope to learn from other organizations. There is also a danger that because the focus is internal, an organization might not pay sufficient attention to the performance level that other organizations are achieving. The nature of competitive advantages mean what? We know the nature of competitive advantage mean that an organization's success is likely to depend on its performance. It's depend on its performance in relation to the other organization. For example, if the best performing shop in a retail group earn a profit margin of 20%, the group will not gain any competitive advantage over a rival whose shop earn a margin of 25%. Even if the first group improve the margin in all of its shop to 20%. The second type of benchmarking is industry benchmarking. In this approach, benchmarkers are set by looking at what other organization in the same industry as your organization achieve. Industry benchmarking can be divided into competitor benchmarking and non-competitor benchmarking. Competitor benchmarking is information is gathered from about the performance of direct competitors. Non-competitor benchmarking is it is particularly relevant for profit, which means non-profit organizations. For example, it could be useful to compare exam success rates between schools or mortality rates between hospitals. Third type of benchmarking is functional benchmarking. In this approach, internal functions or activities are compared with those of the best external practitioners, regardless of their industry. Through functional benchmarking, an organization can try to find new innovative ways to create competitive advantage as well as solving threshold problems, and because the comparative is not a competitor, there is to be less resistance to sharing information than would be case in relation to competitor benchmarking. Now let's see what are the disadvantages of benchmarking. There are a number of potential disadvantages that businesses should consider prior to performing a benchmarking exercises. Businesses may experience difficulties in deciding which activities to benchmark. Businesses may find it difficult to identify the best in class for each activity. It's often difficult to persuade other organizations to share information. Successful practices in one organization may not transfer successfully to another. There is a risk of drawing incorrect conclusions from inappropriate comparisons. So that's the end of the session's benchmarking. Thanks for watching.